Yes, people. Big show tonight as me and Martin discuss loads of stuff that's been happening. Rumours, big rumours going round that Real Madrid, obviously on the hunt for a new striker. Benzema's left, and they may be targeting our lad Alvarez. We're going to be speaking about that. Calvin Phillips, obviously his time at Manchester City was up in the summer, but he tried to stick around. It's not worked. There is rumours going around now that Newcastle potentially are looking at making a move for Calvin Phillips. As well, towards the end of the show, we will turn our attention to Brighton. And after that, Martin's doing his own show on Mancunian Way, so you guys can go and check that out, man. But Martin, mate, how we doing, mate? Premier League is back, bro. It's good news.
Yeah, it's great news until it stops again in 3 weeks.
Honestly, bro, when I found it out on a watch along. I was doing a watch along the other day. I can't remember if it was England or something, and I was like just watching the game, and I was going through the City fixtures or whatever, and then I seen the international break again. I had a mental breakdown on stream, and I was like, "What? Who? What? Why? Why is this?" It was almost another Peterborough situation. It's like, who? Why? What? You know what I mean? Like, what is this happened? Like, why is this a thing? Who has scheduled
I don't know.
a international break in September, and then in October, and then in November as well? Like, who's done that?
Why? It's mad. I don't know why. But then in 3 months' time, we'll all be doing shows about why players are getting injured and they're knackered. And then they'll ask themselves this same question again. It's mad.
I know.
It's absolute crazy what they're doing.
It is a joke, man. It is a joke. But listen, we're going to turn our attention to the news that's coming out about Julian Alvarez. Obviously, we've had him now, 2 years? Well, this is his second year. Last year was a bit of a weird one because he didn't really play too much. And it very much seemed last year, Martin, as if Alvarez was basically just going to be second fiddle to Haaland. I remember me and you had loads of debates about Alvarez and his future. Where will he play? So much so that you got to the delusional point of even saying play him on the right wing, which I don't know what you were smoking when you come up with that, but yeah. What do you think about this? Is this natural that we've got a player of this ability, and of course he's not playing in his natural position at the moment? Is this just part of the course? Are we going to have to put up with these sort of rumours, or do you think it's BS? Do you think there could be something in it?
I think there's probably something in it. Whether they can get him is a different matter. I think the key to it is because, by the way, he's proved me wrong in that number 10 role.
Yeah.
Happily proved me wrong on it.
Because I think he proved me wrong as well. I'm pretty sure I didn't really like it either.
By the way, he's proved me wrong on the right because he played right. He played on the right against Arsenal. It didn't work. So, yeah, he tried it, but didn't work. The big key test for Alvarez, because I agree with Pep right now, he's undroppable. Totally undroppable. The key comes when Kevin's back in about 3-4 weeks. That's then the key. Because if Alvarez then automatically goes back to the bench, his agent is going to knock back on the door and go, right, all right, he's scoring goals, he's now assisting. Soon as Kevin's back, you put him back to the bench. So one or two things I think could happen, because I do think Kevin will have to work his way back in, but on a fitness scale, not because of
I agree with that.
His ability scale. You know, when you get that, they've got to earn the way back in. Kevin doesn't need to earn his way back in. Kevin, when he's fit, will be back in.
Yeah. 100%. I know what you're saying.
And that's then the test for Alvarez, is where he then does he stay? Does he not? I don't know. I don't think he'll end up at Madrid, because I think the funny thing is with Alvarez, I think we discussed it many times. He kind of knew the situation coming in. He knew Haaland was there. He knew Haaland was going to be the number one. So he's not stupid. He kind of knew that already.
Well, the only thing I would point out on that particular point is he probably didn't expect Haaland to have the season that he probably didn't. When he signed, he probably didn't think to himself, I'm never going to be able to play a game as a striker on my own because Haaland will be that good. He probably thought to himself, oh yeah, Haaland will probably start, but I'll probably rotate with him. You know, he'll get subbed off, he'll get rested, he'll have bad form. Whereas last year particularly, like, that just didn't happen. So he couldn't play as a striker, you know what I mean? Unless it was like a dead game. Now, this year, obviously, might be a bit different. Haaland's not scoring as many goals. I don't blame Haaland for that personally. I blame the team for not creating the chances. And maybe there will be more of an opportunity for Alvarez to play as a striker. But my stance on this has been very, very clear from day one. And that is, we are going to have an issue with these two players, and one of them will probably end up leaving unless you can find a way to get them both into the side. And that's with KDB. That's not now. It's all well and good getting Alvarez into the side now when KDB's not there. But as you said, when KDB comes back into this side, which he will do, he might not be straight back in playing 90 minutes from the off. And in fact, if he did do that, that'd be a bit dumb, to be honest with you, given his injury situation. But 4 or 5 weeks or whatever since he comes back from his injury, he will get back into the team. And I still believe that Alvarez is not going to be seen on that right-hand side. He's not going to be seen on the left-hand side. So he's only got the striker position to play, which is not going to play unless Haaland gets injured or
the 10.
Yeah, exactly, or the 10. And will he play Alvarez and KDB in that position? Potentially, maybe, but then Foden's out as well. That's another issue then you've got to solve. So this is a situation that I think is going to be interesting. But ultimately, Pep has to find a solution. Otherwise, I'm not delusional. I know Alvarez will end up leaving if he doesn't play. Because as you say, Martin, he's not going to... This guy's a guy who won the World Cup. He's probably top 3, top 4, top 5 strikers in the world. He's not going to... People have to accept... He's not going to accept being a bench player, right? And it's all good and it's all well and good now because he's playing, because KDB's not there. If KDB comes back in and Alvarez gets dropped... And another thing is, does he even like playing in this position, Martin? Because something that we hear a lot, especially in the modern day, you probably didn't hear it when, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever. But players speak a lot more about where they want to play on the football pitch.
Well, Phil Foden does.
Yeah, exactly.
How many times have you heard Phil Foden say he doesn't want to play on the wing?
Yeah, no, exactly. So
Constantly.
We don't even know. Now, Alvarez might not care. There's still some players out there that will literally, I'll play wherever on the pitch. You know what I mean? I'll play left back, goalkeeper. I don't care. I just want to play.
They say all that, and then you get to a Gabby Jesus situation, and then he's like phoning his man because he's playing on the right wing.
I think as well, to be fair, with strikers, that probably doesn't apply because they want to be scoring goals. And if they're playing on the wing or they're playing camp, I think whether it's a midfielder or a centre-back or whatever, like Guardiola's not going to be asked about playing left-back, is he? He's not going to be knocking on Pep Guardiola's door. He's like, Pep, I want to play left-back. I want to play centre-back. Now, I want him to play centre-back as well, but he's probably not going to be doing that. You know what I mean? Although, again, Jerome did do that when he was at City, so maybe they do.
This has always been the problem. I mean, like Phil Foden is on record everywhere, interviews. He wants to play in that midfield. Talks about when he went in his EDS, wanted to play in the midfield. The trouble is, he wants the 10. KDB wants the 10. Alvarez isn't going to get the direct 9, so he's going to want the 10.
Yeah.
You then apparently want to buy Paqueta, who's the more offensive than he probably is defensive.
Yeah.
It's not FIFA. Said this to 1,000 people. This ain't FIFA where we just buy every top shelf player going, and then you're right back into a... Oh, by the way, you still got Kovacic, Nunes. I'm missing people. And apparently we're after midfielders in January. So this is like, where are we putting them all? And I honestly love Alvarez. I've fallen in love with him. And I've fallen in love with him that much when you look at the Ballon d'Or stuff. When they talk about Messi, how he's not in there is even astonishing when you look at what he's won and what he's contributed and everything else. I think it's a bit too early, but it should be in the conversation. I just worry how he's going to take it. I think that's the key thing to this is what happens that first 2, 3, 4 games when KDB's back. Because we know he's not going to go with
back when he's fully fit. Back when he's fully fit, not straight away.
Because the problem is you've got Champions League semi-final. For example, you're playing Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Is Alvarez back to the bench? When Alvarez knows every single club in Europe, he can go, be in that position and play.
Yeah.
And be the starter.
And this is the thing, but at the same time, The problem that City have got as well here is we don't know truly what Haaland's going to do. Do you know what I mean? Because as a City fan, I'd like to think he's going to stay here for a decade. He's a City fan who's born in England. He obviously likes the Prem, but the rumours of him having a desire potentially to one day to go to Real Madrid, they never really go away. And the problem for City is, and we're in this really, really awkward position as a football club where, let's say, it's probably not going to happen this year because he's playing quite a lot of football this year, Alvarez, and I still think he'll play quite a lot this year. But let's just say next year we get Lucas Paqueta in, KDB goes injury-free, Haaland goes back to last year and scoring every single game. Alvarez is going to find himself out of the team. So let's say in the summer of 2025, so not next season, the season after, 2025 or something, Alvarez says, I'm not playing. I'm 24, 25, whatever. I need to be playing. I want to leave. And say, right, okay. This is the price. Real Madrid come in. Let's just say, for argument's sake, not Real Madrid. We can't use Real Madrid. Let's just say Bayern Munich for someone like that, right? Just for argument's sake, let's just say Bayern Munich come in. And he goes to Bayern Munich. You get a good fee. We didn't really want to sell him, but we had to sell him because he wanted to leave because he's not playing. You get a good fee. The year after, Haaland knocks on the door and says, yeah, lads, loved it here. Thanks for everything you've done. Thanks for winning me the Champions League. Thanks for winning treble. But I want to go Real Madrid. And Real Madrid have spoken to me and they can afford the price. All of a sudden, you've gone from having two of the best young strikers in the world to potentially having no one. And that is, listen, it's a good position to be in. I'm not moaning about it. It's a good position to be in, but it's, you know, Alvarez for me is a player that this whenever you hear rumors about him leaving Alvarez, it's always like, oh, Real Madrid are interested or Barcelona are interested. With Haaland, it's always Haaland has a desire later on in his career to play in Spain, right? So it's from the player's point of view. So do you see what I'm saying? So with Alvarez, it's not. I could see Alvarez staying at Manchester City for 10 years more.
See, I'm the opposite.
More. Really?
I can see Haaland staying more.
Really? Even though you constantly get these rumours about Haaland. Listen, I think there's a good chance.
We had him with Aguero. We had him with David. We had him with Kevin. They were all, you know, remember Aguero was using us to go to Real Madrid and fell in love with the play. You always hear sort of 3 years down the line that they're falling in love with Manchester.
Yeah, but also I would also say that though, Martin, the differences with that is Real Madrid didn't need Aguero. They had Benzema. Now they need a striker.
But not only that, I think Alvarez is South American, Argentinian.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I've just got it in my head and I can envision it. Turn up at Real Madrid and coming out with that statement.
What statement?
My boyhood club, this is somewhere I've always wanted to be.
Bro, City are massive in South America now, bro. I was watching a vlogger.
I know.
Bro, listen, I was watching a vlogger on YouTube the other day, yeah. A guy was just mooching around South America somewhere. I'm not sure what country it was, yeah. City shirts everywhere, mate.
No, we're a little club. No fans, no history.
Yeah, I'm telling you, mate. Alvarez,
28.
Plus, also, I would say this as well. I think the Argentinians, yeah, I think we got some big fan base going on over there. I can't say for factual information, but you think of all the Argentines we've had over the last 10, 15 years at this club. Top professionals, top players who play week in, week out and as part of the national team as well. I think we're growing a little bit of a cult over there, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you got Zaba, Otamendi, you know, we've had many. I won't include Glauberberta because that's, you know, and all the South Americans we've had there. No, listen, we've had some amazing Argentinians. Zabaleta will always have a place for me because he's just, to me, such a legend. Aguero, you know, De Michelis, we've always had the Argentinian sort of link with the club. It sounds like such a real daft question, doesn't it, when you're talking Haaland or Alvarez? Which one's more likely to get that Madrid move? Because I've spoke with some fans and I've had it on my channel. Some have like, well, they prefer Haaland to go than Alvarez. Now, I find that mad.
Who's saying that? I mean, I love Alvarez.
I'm just like, God. I mean, I've even heard on that lovely social media platform that me and you go on every now and again with some lovely people on. And there are people who are Haaland's here for a good time, not a long time. And they've got that in that head.
Which may be true. We don't know.
Maybe.
But at the same time, as you say, possibly so with Alvarez. Nobody knows.
No, of course they don't. But Pep's never going to go with 2 up front. I know we all sit there and we dream of that.
He did do it though with Jesus and Aguero early on when he had Benjamin Mendy.
3 games and then went
back.
Yeah,
but that's because Benjamin Mendy got injured, and then he said he couldn't play that formation without Ben Mendy. That's what happened. He got injured. I remember that. You remember that game we played against Bournemouth away
we did
from
against
home.
Liverpool as well, where we beat 5-0.
But he said, Pep Guardiola said, I can't remember when he said it, but he said he can't play that formation without Mendy. And obviously, he doesn't mean Mendy's in the person. He just means the guy running down the wing, putting
the overlapping.
Which is why I was surprised, Martin, that this summer we didn't go for wing backs. So we had that option. Because you don't have that option now because we don't have any. Well, you do. You have Sergio Gomez, but he ain't rated it by Pep Guardiola.
He's not going to play.
No. So is there a way of getting them to... I mean, we've had this conversation so many times. I don't want to rehash the same debate, but can you get Alvarez and Haaland into the same team? If not, the wall will crumble. The wall will fall down. And when it does, one of them players will climb over the wall and step into another club, man.
It's who goes out for them. Because for those 2 to go in together, you are going to lose a Kevin or a Phil.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm then in Sophie's choice of which one I want to be sat on the bench. Because Phil Foden's in a stage of his career where he should now be coming into his prime. He should now be purring like a kitten, ready to roll week in, week out. And yes, he has got that little bit of extended time because he's homegrown, he's a blue, he's boiled everything. He's given that extra bit of leeway. But he's got to find a regular position within the team, not just squad. He's got to find a proper position. No more this right wing, left wing, 10, 8. He's just got to be given a proper position.
Agreed.
We don't know what's going to happen with Bernardo come the summertime. We know he's got that release clause.
I think he's going in the summer, mate.
So that's going to free up. But then you're going to buy Paqueta. You're going to get Paqueta potentially and maybe another midfielder. So listen, this is why Pep gets paid the huge amounts of money. But the trouble is, no club in the whole of world football has got 2 forwards like we have. Nobody.
No. I know. But like I say, that brings
problems.
Great
thing. It's also a bad thing.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a bad thing, but it is
when you're only playing one of them.
No, but we're in a privileged position. It's what I would say. It's not a bad thing, but it's if you want to keep it, you have to find a solution that keeps both players happy, and that's difficult. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing though, because like I say, to have both of them at your club, that is insane. It's just the problem for me. The main risk I see here is Alvarez in a year or 2 says, I'm not happy with this. I want to play. I want to leave. He leaves, and then a year or 2 later, Haaland's like, right, we have a good time. And then we're like, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? And we end up with some next guy. So, listen, it's an interesting debate. Keep your comments coming in on it. And obviously, if you're watching back on replay, feel free to get your comments in down below. Amar with the super chat says, Alvarez is not a 10, hence why Haaland gets 0 chances. Well, I would say this. I think Alvarez proved us all wrong with playing in that position. However, you can't deny that in the last couple of games in that position, he's ghosted, to be honest with you, if we're being real. As has Foden in certain games as well.
Yeah.
So, listen, at the end of the day, you're trying to force a square pole into a circle.
I think he's been excellent in that position. And yes, he's probably right. He's not a natural 10.
It was a temporary fix. Yeah. And he's done well for most of it. But as with most temporary fixes, at some point, the temporary fix will fail. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a temporary fix. And
maybe that's why I was, when we had that, kept having that debate onwards about the right-hand side, maybe I was thinking of a way of trying to shoehorn Alvarez in. Because I totally agree. He has to be in.
And I understood why you did that. You know what I mean? But
yeah, and it's such... I don't know why, because speak with Blues of mine, and some of them do think this is Gabriel Jesus Mark 2 coming up.
Well, he's better than Jesus, but we might be in the same situation as Jesus.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Although the only difference is with Jesus is he had his chance and he blew it. He had the chance to be our striker, and he wasn't good enough. That's the difference. He had the chance.
Right,
remember when he played 9 games in a row when Aguero was injured, he didn't score a single goal.
Would you consider resting Haaland on the bench for a couple of games and trying Alvarez there?
Okay, so here's the interesting argument. In the last against Wolves, I'm not the Newcastle game, by the way. Like that exited my mind. I went to the game and I didn't even care about the game when I was there. I knew he was losing that game. The Wolves game, we didn't create anything for Haaland. Arsenal, we didn't create anything for Haaland. So the issue that you got here is if you don't create anything for Haaland, Haaland doesn't do much. It's okay to say that. It's okay. Yes, he'll drop deep now and again and hold the ball, but he's not doing it like Harry Kane. He's not having a significant impact on the game if you're not creating chances, right? He goes, right? Because he's a goal scorer. So the question is then, if your team isn't working, right, and it's not creating chances, would you then actually be better off dropping Haaland, not because he's doing anything wrong, but because your team's not doing enough to get the ball to him, playing Alvarez as a striker who does more in that position in terms of overall game, won't score as many as Haaland, but does more in terms of the overall game, and changing the system up? Is that something that you could do? Yes, it's a fucking brave call. It's a brave call because you've signed Haaland.
Especially when you're in contract negotiations with Haaland at the same time.
Exactly. And, and if it doesn't work, you know what I mean? Then you're going to get fans on the back saying, why have you fucking dropped Haaland?
Listen, the club are not stupid, LB. Haaland's the cash cow. Haaland's the shirt seller. Haaland's the guy who pulls the casual fan into the Etihad on midweek games. I'm not stupid. I know that. I was at a game where there was a elderly couple. Haaland scored. And then he got subbed. As soon as Haaland got subbed, they left. They were there for Haaland. They weren't there for Manchester City.
Yeah.
The club know that. They're not stupid.
No, of course. And it's because he's a Galactico player. He's exactly. And to a lesser degree, but also kind of similar. Mahrez was the same. You might have Algerians that were there. Sun Ji-ai back in the day was probably the same at the time as well. Do you know what I mean? You see it with Son at Spurs. You know what I mean? All the fans come over. Do you know what I mean? That's the way it is. Listen, it's an interesting debate. We are going to move on from that though. Big up to Haaland, says if both strikers leave, we'll go back to a false 9. Well, I mean, it wasn't the worst formation in the world. It did a job.
No.
And Alvida Zayn, with a member chat, says Rodri Stones at the base of midfield, Alvarez KDB behind Haaland, Phil right wing, Jack left wing, Doku alternates wings, Bernardo will leave. And of course, I would say on that as well, we obviously mentioned in the last couple of games we're not created. Rodri's coming back in and John Stones is coming back in. So that will obviously have a huge impact on it. But yeah, let's turn our attention to Calvin Phillips. Obviously, a failed transfer, let's be real. Rumours coming out today, Martin, that potentially Newcastle could look at a loan move with or without an obligation to buy. That's obviously something to be negotiated at this moment in time. Phillips, Newcastle, do you think City would let him go to Newcastle? Would you let him go to Newcastle? Do you think it's a good move for Phillips? And just sort of like, what's your general sort of feelings on Calvin Phillips at this moment in time? Because, by the way, just quickly, he played against England. I played for England today. I don't think he did too bad. I know his stats stunk and he lost the ball a few times, but I actually thought he did all right for England. But go on.
Yeah, I've seen mixed reviews on that. Some thought he should have got sent off.
Oh, it should have been sent off. But other than that, he's done all right.
Yeah, listen, I've always been, the last few months I've been that no back him. Because I've had this belief of, I can't say he's crap and I can't say he's not good enough because I haven't seen enough of him to say whether he's good enough. 10-minute cameo ain't going to show me a lot. But when he's played, he's done okay. He's not been marvellous. Some thought he was awful at Newcastle. I didn't think he was as bad as some said. I think Calvin Phillips has hit a brick wall now, and it's come to a situation where it's not good for him. It's not good for the club. And it's probably best, as the club wanted to do, and we know this, the club wanted to do in the summertime was exit him then. But he went, no, I'm going to knuckle down. All power to him. He wanted to knuckle down, fight. Now he's come to the realization, nah, ain't going to happen for me. And I think the club will loan him or sell him wherever they probably get the best offer. I don't think there's a club out there would say no to. Really? I really don't, because I think Newcastle is a very intriguing one, especially with the Tonali situation, because we don't know whether A, they're going to get that money back, B, because if they don't get that money back, they're still hampered by FFP. So then the Calvin Phillips is a nice cheap option.
Yeah.
Maybe on a loan with an obligation to buy 6 months down the line. I don't think he'd probably want to go abroad because from what I've heard, isn't his partner pregnant? I'm not sure going abroad is probably the best idea for Phillips if that is true. So Newcastle will back their players. Their fans will give him the rip-roaring welcome that he needs. He needs a new lease of life. The guy needs to play football. He'll be given the time at Newcastle to settle in. He's got Bruno Guimaraes around him. Bruno can do the clever stuff. He can do the dirty stuff. And he's not got that pressure probably that it is at Manchester City. But sadly, it is time for him. He needs to leave 100%. I think it leaves us with a little bit of a problem in terms of a homegrown squad numbers-wise. I think we're going to have to, because from what I read the other day, I think we're borderline thin on that at the moment. So that's an English player out. We'd have to bring probably a homegrown player in from somewhere. So yeah, I know it's a long-worded answer, but yeah, I think it's time for him. Sad.
Yeah. For me, bro, I would just say this on Phillips. I think for me, the number one reason it's not worked for him is he's too slow. I think he's too slow. And if you obviously didn't watch the game against England, for England the other day, based on what you said earlier, but the reason that he looked decent for England the other night is because England are slow. They had Declan Rice holding his hand. He didn't have to run around the pitch sprinting around. He looked all right. The difference is when he's at City, he's the lone pivot, right? He's got to cover more ground. He's got to cover that ground quicker. And he's expected to turn on the ball and get the ball forward quicker. He's got to break up play quicker. He's got to run, sprint to get to players closing down balls and making challenges quicker. And that for me is the main reason. I think for me it's never going to work. For Phillips to go to Newcastle, I see some rumours suggesting that Liverpool were interested. I wouldn't let him go to Liverpool because they are a title threat. And how stupid would we be to let him go to Liverpool? And they went on.
Bad. I don't see him getting a lot of game time at Liverpool.
Well, I actually think, Martin, he'd run into a similar problem at Liverpool that he has at Manchester City because Klopp would play him as the sort of lone guy mainly, and he'd have to cover all the ground. Whereas, you look at the way Newcastle play, they're a very methodical team under Eddie Howe. They don't typically blitz teams in terms of pace, like just rip-roaring through the whole team. You know what I mean? And they defend in a decent shape as well. And like you say, Bruno can drop back, Joe Linton, and he can have like players around him, surrounding him. He's less exposed. I think that Newcastle would be okay. But to let him to go to Liverpool, I think that would be a silly move. In terms of replacements, this is I don't think we've discussed this. My view on this, bro, is possibly controversial. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think we should buy a backup player for Rodri because I don't think that will work. My opinion on this is that Rodri is too good. And because of how good he is, he creates an issue. Because if you drop him, you see a significant decrease in performance from the team. Because not only are you losing defensive ability, aerial ability in both boxes, breaking up play, interceptions, ball carrying, creating chances, scoring goals. He literally does it all. He's almost a perfect midfielder. Because of how good he is, the drop-off is mad. So if you was to buy a backup DM, you can tell whoever you want, whether it's Zubimendi, whether it's this guy, I don't care. The problem is that player is going to run into a similar issue that Phillips has. And that issue is that they're only going to play 10, 15 matches a season. And that's spread out across the whole season. And by the way,
they know that at the beginning.
And they know that. So the issue with that is people need to understand that there's a difference between being fit and being match fit and being match sharp. I'm fit. I've not got no injuries, right? That does not mean I can just step on the football pitch and just run around for 90 minutes and be sharp. No, I'm not match sharp. You know what I mean? Players have to be match sharp. And to get that, they've got to play matches. My thing that I think we need to do, and I don't know if they did, I'm interested to hear your take on this. potentially they tried it with Kovacic and think maybe he could have done it. I'm not sure. But my opinion on this is we need to buy a midfielder who plays in midfield most games, but in the event that Rodri gets suspended or injured, can drop into the number 6 position and play defensive midfielder, a la Ilkay Gundogan. Ilkay Gundogan could do that. So basically, we had the perfect player for this, by the way, in Ilkay Gundogan. He played every game, right, in midfield. And then if Rodri got injured or suspended, he'd be match fit because he's been playing in midfield, and he could also play CDM, as he did for a whole year. So we need someone like that. Now, frustratingly, we had that player in Gundogan, and we fucked around with the contract. We ended up losing the player. A player that has been linked with us, and a player I think could do it, is Kimmich from Bayern Munich. 2 years left on his deal. There's been a few rumours going around that he would be open to a potential new deal. What's your take on...
Kimmich won't play 10 or 15 games. If you're going to bring Kimmich in, which I've no problem with, you'd have to go with a double pivot.
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. You play Kimmich in the Kovacic position. You drop Kovacic, and he would go in there. And he have you seen his attacking stats, bro? The guy gets goals and assists.
Yeah. Again, I'm coming back to the Bernardo, Foden, Nunes, Kovacic dilemma. So someone's holding bench for a very long time at that point.
Well, I would say
I know the problem, and I know that's football and everything else. To me, I think we spoke about it. I think it was last week, and I like the idea of Stones or Rico can fill in and do that one. Personally, for me, I get what you say. Kimmich, 100%. No one's going to turn down Joshua Kimmich. The guy is probably not even in the prime of his. What is he? 26, 27?
I think he's 27.
He's got another 5-6 years left at the top level. The guy, we ain't talking a 32-year-old there who's rocking him. We're talking a top player. I would love it. But by the way, are we not buying Paqueta? See what I mean? We forgot about Paqueta as well. I
forgot about Paqueta. I say this to you on a real. Right? This isn't me moaning. I'm confused by our transfer activity. I'm confused by it. That's not me slagging anyone off before he was saying, "Oh, you're so ungrateful." I'm not moaning. I just don't get it. And you look at, we went for Bellingham, right? We had to go for Bellingham. Look at what he's doing at Real Madrid. Look what he's doing for England. He's probably going to win the Ballon d'Or one day. We had to go for him, right? You've gone from him to Rice. I know why we went for Rice as well. We was in for Maddison. Then we didn't get him because we already gone to Spurs. We went for Paqueta. And then we've ended up with Nunes.
Which I don't mean drop as in. I mean, we went for a completely different profile to many of them players.
So that makes me confused as to our transfer strategy. And then and I think this last 3 weeks will probably highlight to the football club. And if it's not highlighted it, then bloody hell, someone please wake them up. There is an issue at this club of when Rodri drops out the team, whether it be through injury or suspension, we are massively worse. Now, of course, that is combined and made worse by the fact that Kevin De Bruyne is also injured at the same time. However, Rodri being out, we do need to sort that. And clearly, the one thing that I was quite surprised at, bro, is in none of these games we see Nunes play as the 6. Was you?
No.
Even just as an experiment, just to try it, because if you
I've seen him march up the right wing as the experiment, and I'm like, where's he going?
I was very surprised at because if you look at Phillips, and the reason for me that Phillips hasn't worked is because he's too slow. Nunes isn't slow. Nunes is quick. He's actually probably more of a better defensive player than he is going forward. If you look at his time at Wolves and look at some of the highlights at Sporting Lisbon, he's good in the tackle. He's a very aggressive player. He's one of them Portuguese type players who gets stuck in. Good ball carrier. Yeah, he can. So I was quite shocked to not see that, even just as an experiment in one of the games to see if it's worked, because we didn't see Kovacic in it, because Bernardo was the deepest player at Arsenal. If my memory serves me correct,
Bernardo's not 6. Bernardo's not 6.
So I get a bit confused about what is the transfer strategy with the midfield. Why have we signed Nunes? What is he here for? Because I don't see when he's going to play. If he's not going to play as a number 6, which he's not done so far when Rodri's been out, and he can't shift Kovacic out the team, well, the other player is going to be the Kevin De Bruyne, Foden, Alvarez, or Bernardo. He's not going to play. I mean, we've seen it in one of the games. Was it Wolves where we played?
And you're also stumping Rico's growth there, by the way.
Correct. So I think in the summer, the club have got a very, very, or maybe even January, although I don't see a January transfer. The club have a very important and interesting decision to make here on the midfield. Where did they go? If they signed Paqueta, that's all well and good, but you're still not addressing the defensive midfield issue unless they feel that Núñez can do it. Maybe they just didn't want to do it in these last couple of games.
I honestly think the way Rodri plays our CDM role, you are never, ever going to get anyone on the open market
Correct.
to come in and do what we all want to do for
Agreed.
Rodri. No one. I mean, I've heard people say Paulinho at Fulham. Paulinho is not going to come in and play 10 or 15 games and sit on the bench.
Yeah.
He won't do that.
Correct.
And then, by the way, you're talking, what, 85 million quid for a backup?
Not happening.
And I know they'll say, well, they're not a backup, they're rotation. They're a backup.
Rodri isn't a rotation.
You'd be nice to say he's a backup.
Yeah. Rodri's not a rotation.
Let's just not sugarcoat it. They're a backup.
Yeah.
So the problem is, we have got the world's best CDM.
By far.
Comes a price with that.
Correct.
It's very hard to then get a backup. Because if you go through the last 5 years of players we've lost, they've all left for the exact same reason nearly. Because when it got to the big games, they were benched. And it's all right saying to a player, Sheffield United here, have a game, great. Real Madrid next week in the Bernabeu, you're on the bench. They automatically know Rodri's right back in again.
Yeah, and also they get screwed a little bit as well because they'll be playing with the other rotational players. So it means that they're not playing with the better players. So you come in for the Sheffield United game or Luton or whatever, and you're not playing with Haaland, you're not playing with Kevin De Bruyne, you're not playing with Walker, you're playing with Akanji and fucking,
I said that about Calvin Phillips at Newcastle. He sat with Sergio Gomez on the right of him, Oscar Bob in front of him, and that's not who he's you trying to get him to link with.
Correct.
Because when he comes into a Premier League game, Oscar Bob's not in front of him and Gomez is not on the right of him.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You square pegging him round all straight away. I just think, in a way, we're a bit of a victim of our own success, if there was ever such a thing of just having the world's best CDM.
And that's exactly what I said right at the start of this debate.
Nothing we can do about
that. But this is a problem because if you have someone who's good, you can get two players who are good and they can compete and they can push each other and it's great. Week by week, you can just keep picking the best one. As you said, and this is why I always say, right, I need to trademark this. It is harder to buy backup players than it is to buy first-team players. I've said that for years and I'll stand by it because anyone can go on FIFA, anyone can watch YouTube compilations and go, that guy's mint, sign. Anyone can go, oh yeah, sign Musiala or sign Florian Wirtz. Who's your backup to that player? Who's your backup to this guy? Who's your backup to that guy who's going to play 10, 15 games? Who's going to accept not playing in the Champions League final, the FA Cup final, the Uniteds, the Liverpools, the Arsenals, the Chelseas of this world? And who's going to be good enough to come in off of 4 or 5 weeks of not playing a single game and be expected to play?
We've got the exact same problem we just talked about 10 minutes ago with Alvarez. You would have the exact same problem with Rodri.
Correct, yeah.
For his back. And so this is just a situation that we have to face. It's not FIFA. We can't go out and get Erling Haaland and have Harry Kane and whoever else sat behind him. It just doesn't happen like that. I don't know how the club do it. That's why I was thinking Rico or Stones. And maybe, like you said, buy an 8 in a way.
Well, Stones is similar to my Kimmich shout but just backwards rather than forwards. I said Kimmich, but Kimmich is
into defence.
For the midfield, dropping him back. You're just going.
I wouldn't mind Gvardiol. Gvardiol could do that. I wouldn't mind.
Well, the thing with Gvardiol, we've not seen him really invert into that midfield like Akanji and like Stones have so far.
We've seen him Akanji doing it. Akanji scares me when he does it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say. Listen, Akanji's no John Stones in there, but I do think sometimes he gets a little bit too much hate in that position. I don't think he's been particularly bad. He's just not been as good as John Stones. But yeah, Gvardiol's an interesting one because we've not really seen that. And Pep Guardiola seems intent on playing Gvardiol on the left, which...
Well, he was going up the left wing at the Emirates.
Well, exactly, which I'm
Where
actually
are
a
you
bit
going?
disappointed at because I want to see Guardiola in the centre position. But listen, Pep
Yeah.
Guardiola, he's the
I'd
fucking
have
guy.
loved to have seen Guardiola to have 30 minutes in that 6 role at some point leading up to the Arsenal game, maybe. And just,
Yeah,
it was a shame we got that, we dropped to 10 men against Forest and maybe against Newcastle. The trouble is, you had to play Phillips against Newcastle.
yeah, he did.
So you couldn't have even done Vardiol into an experiment to
Correct.
practice
Oh,
out.
unless you
You couldn't
double
have done it.
pivoted him. You could have
Yeah,
double pivoted
it
him.
was a weird one. But yeah, I was talking to people last night and they were, get Musiala, get this, get that. And I went, do you want to put your control pad down and we'll have a chat? It's like,
Well, the
it's mad.
Musiala one, the Musiala one is you've got to think long term about
I'd
who's going
love
to be
it.
replacing KDB because you've got to be
Yeah.
real. You can't bury your head in the sand. KDB, 2-3 years. You've got to start thinking about who's going to replace Kevin De Bruyne now. You can't think about it when he goes, right, lads, I'm gone. You know what I mean? Like
Is
we
it
did
a
with Fernandinho and
replacement?
Rodri.
Well, here's what, is it a replacement or is it a, because I don't think you can ever buy a replacement like we did for David. I think Kevin's even different.
No, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah, I know you're talking about in that position, but a
Yeah.
different time. Musiala, I would love. My only thing with Musiala, I just see him being a bit of a lifer at Bayern. I don't know why. I just see him being a lifer at Bayern.
I don't know about that, bro, because you see his interview the other week. He come out and was like, "Yeah, I'm
No,
happy at
I've
Bayern,
not
but
actually
like,
seen it.
yeah, he did an interview the other week and he come out and he was like, "Yeah, I'm happy at Bayern, but like, basically, I want to win." And by winning, he's talking about Champions League.
I mean, how much think he'd be? 'Cause I missed you.
Well, so this
earlier,
is
actually.
yeah, so this is an interesting one because he's only got 2 years left on his contract in the summer. So I don't think we'd be pushing like the 150s of the world. I think it'd be around the 100, 110, 120. Because if he
Right.
makes it clear to Bayern Munich that, all right, lads, I ain't signing a new contract, they'll say, right, well, we want 150. And City will say, well, we still got, this is why we need to do it now because we don't have to sign Florian Wirtz or Musiala this summer, right? I know there'll be people in the chat that disagree with me on that, but we don't because you've still got Kevin De Bruyne, you've still got Foden, right? Obviously, if we lose Bernardo, then there might be an argument for it. But if you go in to Bayern Munich in the summer and Musiala makes it clear that he wants to join Manchester City, will not be signing a new contract. You go into Bayern Munich and say, right, we want Musiala, 120, right? It's 110, whatever. And they say, no, we want 150. Well, we're in the power position, not them, because they've only got 2 years left on the contract. So then what you say to them is, well, we're not paying that, and no one else around
Wait
Europe's
12
probably
months
going
and
to
it'll
pay
go
it.
down again.
So we don't necessarily need him. We'd like him, but we don't need him now. We've still got Kevin De Bruyne, still got Foden, still got Doku, Grealishes of this world. I'd say what we'll do. We'll resume this conversation in a year when he's got 1 year left on his contract.
And you're going at 80 million.
And then you start, that's difficult then because, you know, you've got to do a deal then by me. You have to do a deal in that summer because then otherwise you're going to lose him on a free the year after. So for me, I would like Manchester City this summer to test the waters with a Musiala, to test the waters with a Florian Wirtz, just to see what we can potentially look at doing because I want
still
to
get Paqueta then.
Paqueta for me, we have to wait to see what happens with Bernardo Silva, in my opinion. Because if Bernardo leaves, I think there's enough room in this team to get two. Because as well, bro, Kevin De Bruyne's picking up a few injuries now.
Yeah,
he is.
He's 33.
He's 33. And these players, by the way, are young. They're 20 years old, Musiala and Wirtz.
Oh, the one thing City are good at is putting a 10-year plan in and building for the future. Yeah. And I think Pep Guardiola's kind of already started that in a way with the Alvarez's and the Haalands, and the Doku's even. You've got Phil Foden still quite young, which is mad because it sounds like he's been around for 10 years, the way people talk about him. So it is there's parts of the squad that are, you know, spot on in terms of age, but there are. I feel as though the squad, if I'm honest with you know, like when you renovate a house and you sort of can't get the decorations you want because they're not in stock. So instead of waiting, you sort of go to the next thing down and you go, right, we'll have that. And then 6 months later, you look at whatever you've renovated and go, don't quite like that. It's not quite worked. And then you end up tearing it all back out and redoing it again.
The way you wanted to do it initially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why, and I'm never, you know me, Albert, I'm not negative. I look at Kovacic and I look at Nunez and I go, because I love Kovacic, I think he's a great player. But are they just sort of a holding block? Because the people we want, because like you said earlier, to go from Bellingham to Rice to Maddison to this, that, to then Kovacic and Nunez was, I don't know. It just
okay. So let me answer that. Let me address that. So, first of all, we were put into a very, very bad position by ourselves because the main issue of the summer is that we ballsed up Ilkay Gundogan's contract. And we said this on streams plenty of times. And there was people saying, you've got this wrong, you're wrong. Well, no, we weren't wrong because Gundogan come out in an interview and said exactly what we were saying. City did not start the contract talks with Gundogan soon enough. And when we did, we didn't offer him initially what he wanted. So by the time we basically got to offer him what he wanted, he'd already agreed to go Barcelona because guess what? People are not just going to sit around waiting for you to give them what he wanted. Now, if we would have had Gundogan, we would be in a different position, right? The Kovacic signing was a good signing. 29 years old, brings a shitload of experience, and he cost £25 million. I think we would probably have signed Kovacic even if we would have kept Gundogan because it's just a fantastic
What I mean,
buy.
you're starting Kovacic more often than you're putting him on the bench. I don't think he probably has started as much.
No, and when we signed him, and people in the chat can confirm I said this, I thought he was going to be more of a rotational player rather than starting week in, week out. Obviously, by the end of the transfer window, that was clearly evidently wrong because we'd not really signed anyone else other than Nunez. The thing for me is the Nunez one is where I get confused because Nunez for me is not too dissimilar to Kovacic. I think obviously there are differences, but he doesn't create stuff. His stats prove he doesn't create stuff. He doesn't score, he doesn't assist. Kovacic doesn't score, doesn't assist. You've got two very similar players. And off the very small sample size of games we've had without Rodri, Pep Guardiola doesn't seem to want to play either of them in the defensive midfield position. So them two players are going to occupy the same position. It's that side on the left-hand side, slightly in front of Rodri, where they just sort of keep the ball. And then you've got Kevin De Bruyne forward and whoever else in the more attacking position. So you've got two players who can only play one position. That's why it's confusing. That's why I said I was confused before. You know what I mean? So where do we go from here in the summer? You need more attacking options. That's clear. And you need to decide what you're going to be doing with the defensive midfield.
It seemed mad, but it looks like midfield is the place that we need to sort of move in terms of
100%.
Transfers wise. And that's mad considering we bought two in the summer.
But the problem is Gundogan was a defensive midfielder. He was a box-to-box midfielder who could defend and create, and you've replaced
could do 3 jobs at the 3 you signed.
Correct. So that one player who could do multiple positions, you've replaced with 2 players who can only play a very specified position, which is a midfielder who just goes up the pitch and comes back, but doesn't create, but also isn't trusted to play defensive midfield. Do you see what I'm saying? So you've increased the numbers there.
I think Kovacic is a very good player.
Yeah,
100%.
I think they both are.
I think Nunez. I've actually been impressed with the way Nunez has started, but I do understand, and I have thought about that question of where is Nunez long term. That's my only question: is where's Nunez long term?
Yeah. Well, where do you see him long term? What's your sort of what's your like when you ask yourself that question? But is there
a squad rotation player
with any specific position, or is it just sort of like wherever needed?
Well, so far this season we've seen him in some games play fullback, some at right wing, some as an 8. But like you said, we've never seen him as the 6, which is actually where I thought, I'll be honest, I thought he would have gone. I thought he'd have slipped into that role quite easily. But for whatever reason, Pep does not fancy him. Wolves game, he got hooked very quickly. if you look at the term between Kovacic and Nunes is the one who seems to get hooked or doesn't come on or comes on last.
Is that just because he joined later, though? And he's a little bit more less experienced than Kovacic?
I'm hoping it is, because obviously what I've had a pre-season with us. Kovacic went on pre-season with us. So maybe that's what it is. But because Kovacic in pre-season, I thought was going to be steal of the summer.
Yeah. And he started he did start well as well, Kovacic. He's just his last couple of games he's been average.
I talked about the Super Cup when there was the Super Cup game. He got into the box, and when 99% of players would hit the ball when they're in the box, he passed it to the left 3 yards.
Yeah.
And I turned, I went, he gets it. He's been here that amount of time and he's got it instantly. So he's definitely got it in him. I just don't want the Arsenal game and the Wolves game, where he was poor, admittedly, to then judge going forward.
That's fair.
Still think it's early. It's 8 games. But it's unlikely. I do think we will by in January. I think we will.
Yeah, I just don't think we will.
I think we'll buy midfield because I think the Paqueta thing may be done by January.
Yeah, no, I don't see it. But let's see what happens.
It'll be interesting if that one does come off, because then.
Listen, I like Paqueta. I think he's a great player, and he gives us options.
Oh, yeah.
I think he could play right wing, like similar to sort of Mahrez if we needed him there for a particular situation. I think that he could play a creative midfield. I think he could probably play false 9. I think he's a fantastic player to buy, and I know I wasn't fully game for him at first, but then when I started properly thinking about it, I really got excited. I was gutted when the news came out about this betting scandal. So I hope we do end up getting him in. But for me, it's more the defensive side of the midfield that needs the instant attention. But
I know the guy I want deep down. 2 I want: Valverde or Bruno Guimaraes.
Well, Valverde is
they're my 2 ideally.
Yeah, well, I've said for a long time, I think we need a midfielder who can also play on the right. Paqueta can do that, and so can Valverde. And Bruno.
I've always thought Valverde was the Bernardo replacement. Bruno Guimaraes, when he heard he had the 100 million release clause, I was like, I'd have some of that.
I think Bruno's probably saying to Newcastle, I'm going to give you a couple more years. And if you're not challenging for the Premier League, then I'm going to leave for 100 million. I think that's probably what he's saying. But listen, guys, we're going to wrap it up, man. We didn't get to touch on the Brighton stuff, but there was loads of other stuff we talked about there. Obviously, I'll do some Brighton previews tomorrow anyway. So make sure you come back tomorrow. Martin's going live now on his channel, Mancunian Way. Stream will automatically redirect you. So if you fancy some more City content, I'm sure most of you probably do. Don't go anywhere. What are you speaking about tonight, bro? January transfers.
January window. January shopping. Window. Brighton, and we're going to talk about young boys. And it's a calling show, so if you are a subscriber, come and join, have you say?
There we go. Guys, don't go anywhere. Stream will redirect you. Make sure you drop a like on the stream, man. Subscribe to the channel as well if you're new. We're on our way to 9,000 subscribers now. Big up to everyone that has sub. If you're watching this back on replay, hopefully you enjoyed the show. Give us your comments down below, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. See you in a bit.